Hello and welcome to this very special show. This year marks 20 years since Mukesh Ambani took over the reins at Reliance Industries and the transformation of the oil to telecom giant under his leadership. We're going to discuss various aspects of this over the next 30 minutes or so. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Rima, Lata and Sonia are standing by on the big wall as well. I have to, before we kick it off, wish Lata a very happy birthday as well, Lata. Happy birthday.
And she shares her birthday with a lot of other big names.
Oh yes, Dhirubhai Ambani himself.
and Ratan Tata?
Ratan Tata, Arun Jaitley and the Indian National Congress. Their first meeting was on 20th.
And they must also be saying that we're in good company. So happy birthday, Lata.
Thank you. Thank you. It makes you feel how small you are. Others have achieved so much. Anyway, go ahead, Prashant.
Well, so let's set this up, right? Sonia is standing by on the big wall to walk us through Reliance's landmark journey under the leadership of Mr. Ambani over the past 2 decades. Sonia, over to you.
Well, the year 2022 marks 2 decades of Mukesh Ambani's leadership at Reliance Industries. We take you through his journey and the exponential growth the group has seen over the last 2 decades. Let's throw it way back to July 2002 when 45-year-old Mukesh Ambani took over Reliance Industries after the demise of his father, late Shri Dhirubhai Ambani. Since then, Reliance has achieved consistent and strong double-digit growth. The market capitalization of Reliance rose at an annualized rate of 20.6% in the last 20 years, rising from almost 50,000 crores in March 2002 all the way to 17.81 lakh crores in March of 2022. In fact, we've put together a table of the key financial parameters and how most metrics have seen high teens growth in the last 2 decades. If you look at the revenue and the net profit itself, they've risen 15 to 16% on an annualized basis over the last 20 years. Not just that, exports, assets, net worth have all gone up in excess of about 15% and almost 20% on asset growth for the last 20 years for the group. Well, the gains are not for the group to enjoy alone. Reliance has successfully and consistently generated wealth for investors. Reliance added 17.5 lakh crores to investor wealth in just the last 2 decades, adding an average of 87,000 crores to investor wealth every single year. Also, Reliance has displayed agility and relevance by investing in new and upcoming businesses. Reliance's E&P business made its first hydrocarbon discovery way back in 2002, and production started in 2009. After that, Reliance Retail started its operations as well, and in 2016, the big breakthrough came in when Reliance entered the highly competitive telecom industry. Reliance Jio started operations in 2016, and this led to the cost of data per GB falling from 500 rupees in India to 12 rupees post the launch of Jio. Not just that, India's ranking in broadband data consumption as well moved from 50 in 2016 to #1 in 2018. And this at a time when the traditional refining and petchem business expansion continued. So from a single refinery in 2002, Jamnagar is now the world's largest single location refining complex. In fact, Reliance has added some of the world's largest downstream units as well, setting up the world's largest refinery off-gas cracker at Jamnagar and added the world's largest petcoke gasification unit. The last 2 decades have been full of milestones for Reliance, but now let's look ahead into the future. Reliance is committed to investing 75,000 crores in the next 3 years in its new energy businesses and aims to become the world's lowest cost producer of solar energy and green hydrogen. Reliance will be setting up 5 integrated gigafactories at Jamnagar to emerge as the world's lowest cost producer both of solar energy and green hydrogen, and the plan is to become net carbon neutral by 2035. Not just that, Reliance will start 10 gigawatts of solar PV cell and module factory. That happens in 2024, and that will be scaled up to 20 gigawatts by 2026. Remember, it was also under the leadership of Mukesh Ambani that Reliance set a record of capital fundraising way back in FY21. It raised more than 2.5 lakh crores through rights issue and minority stake sales in Jio platform and Reliance Retail Ventures to global marquee investors. During FY21, Reliance was the single largest FDI generator for India at a time when most companies were struggling to survive. Finally, let's wrap this up with Reliance Industries' commitment to corporate social responsibility. The Reliance Foundation was set up way back in 2010 with Nita Ambani at the helm, and it has so far touched more than 6.3 crore lives and is India's biggest CSR initiative both by reach and by spend.
Sonia, thank you very much. That's a very comprehensive look at the journey of Reliance Industries, and what a journey it has been. You know, I must say that I visited the Jamnagar refinery sometime, I think it was in 2005 or 2006, and it's a sight to behold. I mean, it's just a dazzling, spectacular city. I mean, actually, it is a city. You know, you realize the scale of these things. I mean, we talk about refineries and, you know, petrochemical units, etc., but it's just something to see, to believe in. And of course, as Sonia pointed out, the next one came up later, was commissioned, I think, in 2008, 2009 as well. So, you know, but I've only looked at Reliance for the last, 17, 18 years, but let's get someone who's looked at Reliance for much longer than that, a veteran really. Manish Chokani of Enam Holdings is with us. Manish, great to have you with us here. Thank you very much. You know, it's a spectacular journey, as Sonia pointed out, and so many industries now, right? And newer getting added pretty much every couple of years. The latest push, of course, is in Reliance retail in a very large way. Your first thoughts?
Well, Prashant, first of all, thanks for having me. It was probably more appropriate to have Vallabhbhai here, who's on a flight. So he spent a lot more time with them. I was, of course, fortunate. I started, I don't know if many people will know, I was the first analyst covering Reliance way back in 1991, when they were just going to launch their GDR issue. And just to supplement what Sonia said, I think the profit of Reliance in that year was 150 odd crores, which is, you know, at that exchange rate, $50 million. And from that $50 million to be at a $10 billion plus run rate of profit where they are today is just a staggering journey. It's 200 times in the span of this 30 years. And whatever one says about you know, Mukesh Ambani will be, I think, limited, because what his achievements are and where he's led this company to, even before taking over as CEO, as you said. If you think of the refinery which was put up and all the petrochemical units which also came up and transformed Reliance from what was essentially a polyester and a PTA producer to petchem, and then to refining, and then onwards to E&P. And now eventually they will get into green hydrogen and so on, and transform the energy landscape of the country. It's just a staggering journey. And how the late Dhirubhai would say, we have to change orbits each time and not be satisfied in the orbit one has reached. So I'm just in awe and complete admiration for both the company and the person who has led it over the last, well, more than 2 decades now.
Manish, you know, actually, I wanted to start off at that point. Do you know of any other company that, you know, would be actually captive to commodity cycles if it was only petrochemicals, and then so neatly moved into cutting-edge mobility, communications? And then it could have been, you know, there are many telecom companies which would have been just a utility. And then you so smartly convert that into using that utility for, you know, FMCG, retail, etc., cutting edge use of the internet. Are there any other instances? I mean, it's a dramatic transformation.
Well, Lata, I've said this before in one of your interviews. I think it may have been even 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, that in a nation's history, sometimes you get a Rockefeller, sometimes you get a Carnegie, sometimes you get, you know, a JP Morgan. And we've been fortunate in a sense to get all this combined in one entity called Reliance in India, where they've constantly, you know, changed, as I said, the orbits and gone to newer and newer things. With, at the heart of it, what my learning is, they've always operated on first principles. And they will drill down to actually the lowest atom of or unit of production, if I may call it that. And while, of course, Geo launch is shown on your chart as 2016, I remember working with them on what was the earlier avatar of Geo, which was Reliance Infocom, which is the 2001-2002 vintage. When again, the vision of the company and the person was really to transform the way, you know, telecom was conducted. And they were clear even then that voice is history, and it will be data as far back as 2001. And Dhirubhai had actually said we must get this down to the cost of a postcard. And that was really the mission with which you know, this was approached. So again, you know, while you're thinking of it as moving from commodities to new age businesses, I don't think if one would go and examine the way the Reliance refinery was built, with the fluid catalytic cracker, with the gas cracker, and you would not have been able to, you know, produce a lot of the products which come out at the top of the, you know, refining barrel, taking the worst crudes in the world and transforming it over here, if they hadn't had that complete grip over technology. So whether it was taking PTA when DMT was the prevalent technology, which Bombay Dyeing was running in those days, whether it was going down the route of CDMA when GSM was the prevalent technology, or indeed today, when we are sitting and already using 5G, much ahead of rest of the world. It's really because they've worked on first principles. And at two ends of the spectrum, if you think of it, if we did not have the Reliance refinery, and they're probably now a third of all refined capacity in India, we would not be moving the way we are currently, and especially with what's going on in the geopolitical arena and from where they're sourcing routes and creating. And at the other end, think about in COVID, we would have shut down if it wasn't for really Geo, which provided bandwidth for the whole country to operate. And looking ahead, again, we've spoken on one of your earlier shows about the 1-1-1 aim which has been put out for the green hydrogen, green energy initiative, which can again be transformational for our country by the end of this decade. So just like, as I said, complete awe and admiration for the level of thinking, the vision, the detailing, and the sheer class of execution on beyond world scale, which they managed to execute.
I was going through a recent study that Motilal Oswal put out for 2021, where they said that Reliance Industries has created 10 lakh crores for shareholders in the last 5 years, the largest by far that any group has created in terms of wealth for its shareholders. Do you think that it can keep this legacy intact over the next 5 to 10 years, given how dynamic the environment is?
So I'm, of course, a votary of the company. So you're asking someone who's a deep admirer. And like you yourself pointed out, if you compounded at 20% per annum for 20 years on larger and larger incremental capital, it just tells you of the propensity of, knowing where the puck is going to. So while we in the markets may look 2, 3, 4 years ahead, here is someone who's used to looking 10 years ahead. And I remember a meeting where he famously said that, if the profit I make is, let's say, 100 rupees in a year, I will make 400 over 4 years, and I can lever it, say, 0.5:1. So I need 600 rupees of projects at any given time for what we are going, and only at that pace can one keep on compounding. And if you look at them, I think even today, the projects on the anvil are, if I'm not mistaken, already about $75 billion, which are already announced and under implementation. And when they put $1 of investment in, they know how to create $2, $3, $4 of market value from that. So from a $200 billion, whatever market cap we are today, if that 75 billion gives you the next 150 or 200 billion, you can already see a doubling of the trajectory of where this company is headed. So yes, short answer to you is yes. I remain confident about what they will achieve in the coming years.
What do you think Reliance is going to look like? Will it be a software leader? Will it be a retail leader? Will it be a green energy, green hydrogen leader? What's your best guess?
Lata, I think the way to look at it is that Reliance has transformed into a conglomerate. And because they work with first principles and they're not aping what someone else has done in US or what someone else might be doing in India, that's what we call the changing of orbits and the agility with which you can conquer sector after sector. And they've also had the vision to do things which are meaningful in size and not taking small bets and trying to extract the juice out of for example, you could have said, I'll go in paper and I'll put up a cement and so on and so forth. But at the scale at which they are, the bets, if you think of it, a lot of the acquisitions you say are really string of pearls, completing the array of product offerings or consumer offerings that they have, for example, in retail or around the broadband cluster, and now with finance, which also will feed in really to your retail and consumer finance cluster. And the big bet for the company now, obviously, is transforming the old energy into the new energy.
Thank you so much, Manish, for joining us. It's a pleasure having you with us here and sharing those insights and your sort of experience working with the group at one point, and of course, what you see has panned out. We'll take a quick commercial break here. We are back. We continue this discussion with other veterans of the market. Stay with us.
Welcome back. This year marks 20 years since Mukesh Ambani took over the reins at Reliance Industries, and under him, we've seen the company transform, expand its oil business and get into so many new businesses like telecom, retail, new energy. We've been discussing the transformation of Reliance Industries, the great heights Reliance Industries stock price, the company, its financials have soared too. And to continue the conversation, we're now joined by Prakash Diwan. He's also been watching Reliance Industry financials for how long now? Prakash, how many years since you've been tracking Reliance?
I think as long as I remember making some sense of balance sheets, I think Reliance was the first company that we started working on. And in fact, my career started with Reliance from the campus. I was part of the RPPL, RPEL projects from the campus. We were recruited. It used to be called Ilu Pilu at that point in time, very fondly by retail investors. So it's been a long journey, yes, with Reliance, not just on the capital market side, but even as a company. I also had the privilege of working on some of their AGMs at Goti Khavdi in Jamnagar, in 95, 96. I remember 2 years that I was part of that on the R&D side. So yeah, it's been a great journey, learning from them, getting inspired, and then of course tracking them very closely.
Okay. Prakash, must be, a nightmare to value a company like this, right? Because like Manish was saying, this is like trying to find a market price for the Tata Group because it is so many companies.
Yes.
How did that feel? I mean, you must be undergoing that nightmare even right now.
Oh, absolutely, Lata. So, what is happening now for the last 5 years, ever since Jio came into the picture, earlier it was much simpler, as all of us know. But after Jio, every quarter, there's something incrementally changing in the face of the business, in the texture of the P&L. And now it's in fact much more complex with so many of these acquisitions which are still not in the public domain in terms of having discovered values. For example, the Metro acquisition. I mean, you only know what they paid for it and at what EV they have bought it. But when it comes to valuations, all of that gets clubbed very wrongly. So in terms of other activities, but the core business is something which you do, and that's why earlier, if you recall, when we used to discuss Reliance numbers, it was with just one analyst from your side, one team from your team. Now it's 4 of us, 5 of us who are doing it. It's Sonia, Rima, Sonal, everybody who's got to pitch in, and that's the complexity. It's no more an oil and gas play. It's in certain quarters, it's kind of so starkly retail, so starkly telecom that you just can't ignore that. So it is complex. But what's changed also simultaneously is the way the business is growing and evolving, Lata. It has given all of us a huge chance to understand those businesses right from inception, for particularly telecom. It's thanks to Jio that we've started understanding telecom so well, because we've seen it right from the start when it took off, and then every year it kind of kept on morphing into this mega consumer business that it is now. So yeah, I mean it's complex, but it's interesting. And it's always a challenge to be able to do that right and in time every time the quarterly numbers are out.
David Chokshi of KR Chokshi is also with us. And David, I think we've been talking about, on the air, we've been talking about Reliance at least from 2004, maybe 2005. So you're a veteran, Reliance sort of analyst veteran. We're looking back, of course, at the journey, as Prakash was also talking about it, but also trying to look forward. In your opinion, for shareholders, what from here? What do you think is going to be the top trigger which unlocks further value?
Hi, Prashant. Good to have on this particular discussion with you all. I believe that if you look back into the past, quickly take the cue out of that for the future. Every 7 or 8 years, they have launched new businesses, and they start from the petrochemical, and thereafter getting into the oil and gas exploration, even retailing business, and the Jio business platform, refining business included. Each of these businesses, they would take longer time to construct, and essentially they are not the new businesses. They are already existing businesses, which I would think that this company has developed the habit of Indianize those businesses. They would probably create the larger scale, looking at the size of the country, looking at the population, and create a profitable venture out of it. If that particular thing is something called as a cue for the next round of growth that they are talking about, already something which is already launched is a renewable segment of the business, wherein we are going to see the renewable materials, we are going to see the storage business, which is coming up. And that is where probably I think the company is going to unfold larger part of the story. If $75 billion investment commitment that they have already announced, I would rather like to believe that I think by the time they end up completing this particular project, the size of the investment would be far larger. And maybe I think taking care of the next round of growth that probably would be required. So in my viewpoint, I think renewable would be the first thing which will get launched probably in 2024. And subsequently followed by which I think the infrastructure and the defense play, which would be, I think, forming the larger part of the growth engine, which probably this company would launch eventually for the next round of, I think, next 10 years or so. Because India has already made an announcement, Prime Minister has already made an announcement of 110 lakh crores of investment in infrastructure. And that's where probably I think the larger amount of infrastructure related stories will get unfolded in subsequent years. And that's where I believe that the Reliance could possibly lead the direction there too, along with the defense area. So in my viewpoint, I think the future rounds will come from the renewables, storage, infrastructure and defense, if I have to summarize in this order.
What percentage of your portfolio should be Reliance? Because it's not one company, as we've all been saying, it's at least 6 companies.
Comfortable to, I think, keep, 15% and above kind of an exposure into the portfolio from Reliance. I think largely the point is that I think if one company is talking of growing the size of the profit every 3 years or 3.5 years, then in such situation, I think it should be, a meaningful exposure in your portfolio. Currently, 1,30,000 crore worth of EBITDA expected in FY23 would be somewhere around 2,75,000, 2,80,000 crores, I think 3.5, 4 years from now. So if that is so, then I think it is making sense to keep, I think, a larger part of the exposure into this particular stock, because you are basically getting the opportunity to double the size of your portfolio in next 3.5 year time. So that is an easy answer. Maybe by 2030, you might see, I think, this particular profit with similar kind of capital expansion that they've been doing in the renewables and the storage could possibly reach in the direction of around 7.5 lakh to 8 lakh crores EBITDA, I think, by 2030. So that is, again, I think, giving you an opportunity to multiply your investment as much, I think, in next 7-8 years thereafter.
Thank you very much, Deven. Thank you, Prakash, for joining us as we take stock and look ahead. Thank you very much indeed.